All right, let's dive right into this. Picture a freezing, completely isolated night in Silver Pine, Colorado. Snow is falling thick and heavy, pretty much turning this quiet little town into a world of pure white silence. The streetlights are barely flickering, and out on this empty road, two entirely different worlds are about to collide in a way that literally redefines the meaning of power, responsibility, and success. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly fascinating case study that kicks off with one unexpected moment in the middle of a blizzard.
And this brings us right to the central mystery we are focusing on today. Really, it's the core question of this entire explainer. Why did a billionaire stop driving? We're talking about a man whose entire existence was dictated by schedules, profit margins, and just ruthless efficiency. To a guy like this, snow means delays, and delays mean problems. When you're a CEO who is completely used to paying other people to handle the messiness of the real world, you just drive past, right? You let the system deal with it. But on this specific night, he actually hit the brakes. Why? What actually causes a guy who is hardwired for a detached control to just surrender to hesitation?
Well, the answer to that question begins with just 6 words. Please don't make me go back. Whispered by a child in the snow, trembling into the freezing night. Now, as you'll see, these words didn't just stop a moving car. They completely anchored the emotional stakes of this entire situation and forced a powerful man to dismantle the very empire he had spent his life building. Section 1. Stopping in the snow. 38. That was Callum Sterling's age. Just 38, and he had already built a massive corporate empire. Think of a guy in a pristine tailored coat, jaw set tight, someone who measures life strictly in financial outcomes and cold, calculated detachment. He was actively ignoring his buzzing phone, messages from his board of directors just constantly reminding him that control was everything. But then, his headlights caught a shadow in the storm, and his foot hit the brake before logic could even step in to stop him. Because what he found was just a staggering contrast to his untouchable world of immense wealth. There, standing alone beneath a street lamp, was a tiny 6-year-old girl. She was wearing this thin pink coat that had clearly seen way too many winters. She had a broken suitcase leaning awkwardly on one wheel, and in her mitten-covered hands, she was clutching a white plush bunny named Cloud. And here's the thing, she wasn't crying, which tells you she had already learned exactly how silence works. Section 2. A ghost from the past. So Callum brings little Maisie into the warmth of his car. No interrogation, no forcing her to explain where she came from. He just takes her to this glowing red neon diner. But when they get there, Maisie's tiny suitcase tips over and a photograph flutters onto the floor. It's an old picture of Maisie's mother, Lily, holding a toddler in front of the Sterling Pines Inn. But the back of the photo? That's where things get wild. Faded handwriting revealed a direct, undeniable connection to Callum's own past. It read, "For Aunt Rose, thank you for teaching me kindness." Now, Aunt Rose was literally the only person who had ever provided warmth in Callum's own heavy, difficult childhood. It's like the past had actively hunted him down in the middle of a snowstorm. So, what does a billionaire do next? Does he throw money at the problem? Use his corporate clout? No. He steps back. They find safe shelter at that very same inn from the photograph, with the help of a kind woman named Margot. But Callum's next move is absolutely crucial. He makes a calm, protocol-driven call to Dana Park over at Social Services. He actually relies on the proper systems. He lets Dana do her job, answering simple questions, effectively building a foundation of quiet, unforced trust with Maisie. He provides steady consistency instead of impulsive heroics. Section 3. The system versus the child. But just as Maisie finally starts to feel safe, the rigid, broken systems of the adult world threaten to swallow her right back into the storm. And the escalation here is chillingly fast. At dusk, Maisie's aunt, Clara Wynne, marches in with an emergency pickup authorization. It's improperly filed, sure, but it's stamped just enough to legally force Dana Park to hand Maisie over. By nightfall, Clara has whisked Maisie away not to a warm home, but to this vague, shady trailer park management office near County Road 17. And by midnight, realizing something is seriously wrong with the paperwork, Callum and Dana conduct an urgent, strictly-by-the-book welfare check with local law enforcement. And right before that midnight check goes down, Callum's phone lights up. A text message. "Handled the paperwork. You're welcome." It's from his own chief operating officer, Graham Voss. I mean,
Nothing says corporate synergy quite like weaponizing a 6-year-old child to initiate a hostile takeover, right? Graham wasn't just subtly nudging Callum to get back to the office. He was actively funding Clara to manufacture a full-blown crisis.
Well, that midnight welfare check blows the whole thing wide open. Dana and the police find Maisie, thank goodness she's safe, but they also find a freshly printed bank transfer receipt stapled directly to Clara's bogus paperwork. And those funds, they trace right back to Graham Voss. Graham's strategy was as ruthless as it gets. Create a major distraction, use a vulnerable kid as a chess piece, and then later use Callum's involvement to prove to the board that he was distracted, unstable, and totally unfit to lead the company.
Section 4. Stepping down to step up.
So we jump from a dusty trailer park office straight into a sterile, windowless Denver boardroom. Callum realizes his own company is being weaponized against the little girl, and he makes a massive, calculated sacrifice. Which brings us all the way back to our focus, why he stopped driving. He didn't just hit the brakes on his car that night. He hit the brakes on his entire life's philosophy. His old mindset was all about efficient, clean, detached control. You know, if there's a problem, pay someone else to handle it. But his new philosophy? It's built entirely on stability, empathy, and protection. He realizes that staying detached might make you incredibly rich, but taking on true responsibility means you have to change everything.
So, how does a guy armed with this new philosophy fight back against a corporate coup? He doesn't scream, he doesn't throw a tantrum or make a public scene. He uses precise, drama-free corporate maneuvers. He calmly walks into that boardroom and voluntarily steps down as acting CEO. Why? To instantly remove any perceived conflict of interest. And by doing that, he automatically triggers a formal, deep-dive legal and financial investigation into Graham's unauthorized corporate transfers. He legally, methodically dismantles Graham's plot without ever making Maisie part of a public spectacle.
Section 5. The real meaning of wealth. Eventually, the snow melts, the broken system is forced to correct itself, and the true impact of Callum's choices take root in just a beautifully quiet way. It goes to show that true protection requires patience and doing things the right way, by the book. Clara Wynn's guardianship is formally revoked once the financial bribery is exposed. Graham Voss, he isn't dragged out in handcuffs for the evening news like some comic book villain. He gets the ultimate humiliating corporate punishment. He's quietly suspended pending severe civil charges. And Callum, after totally adjusting his lifestyle for background checks and home reviews, is officially granted temporary guardianship of Maisie. But the story doesn't end there. Callum goes a step further. He establishes Rose Haven, a physical safe space built as an annex behind the inn. And he funds it not as a tax write-off charity, but as a permanent systemic commitment to empathy over corporate margins. The foundational rule of Rose Haven is simple but profound. Children are never problems to be solved. They are people to be protected. It becomes a safe haven for kids waiting on the system. Kids who, just like Maisie, really only needed a little bit of time and warmth. You know, Maisie's mother, Lily, used to tell her this. Angels don't have wings. They just show up when you're cold. And I think that just perfectly captures the essence of Callum's entire transformation. He went from a detached, untouchable billionaire viewing the struggles of the world through a tinted windshield to a true protector who simply showed up in the cold and flat out refused to leave. If there is one core takeaway from our explainer today, it's this completely redefined concept of success. True success isn't the massive empire you build for yourself. It isn't the profit margins, the quarterly outcomes, or having untouchable control over your environment. It is entirely about who you choose to stand beside when the world gets cold. It's about why you choose to stop driving when everyone else just speeds past.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. A question for all of us as we navigate our own complex systems, our own careers, and our ambitions. Who are you protecting when their world turns cold? Are you just managing the outcomes, or are you actually showing up? Take that question with you today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we unpack another fascinating story.